before you give up, before you stop praying, before you convince yourself that nothing will ever change. I want you to listen carefully, because there is someone watching this right now who feels exhausted. Not physically exhausted, spiritually exhausted. You've been carrying a burden for so long that you're not even sure what it feels like to be free anymore. You wake up thinking about it. You go to sleep worrying about it. And somewhere along the way, a question started growing inside your heart. God, where are you? Maybe you've prayed the same prayer hundreds of times. Maybe you've asked God to open a door. Maybe you've asked Him to heal someone you love. Maybe you've asked Him to remove anxiety, fear, loneliness, or pain. Yet nothing seems to change. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. And heaven feels silent. If that's you today, I want you to know something important. You are not the first person to feel this way. Some of the greatest men and women in the Bible walked through seasons where it seemed like God was nowhere to be found. Think about Joseph. God gave Joseph a dream, a beautiful promise about his future. But after the dream came betrayal. His own brothers turned against him. He was sold as a slave, taken far from home, then falsely accused, then thrown into prison. Imagine being Joseph. Imagine sitting alone in a prison cell. Imagine remembering the promise God gave you while staring at cold prison walls. How many times do you think Joseph wondered if God had forgotten him? How many nights did he lie awake asking questions? How many prayers seemed to go unanswered? Yet what Joseph could not see was that God was working behind the scenes. Every delay was preparation. Every setback was positioning. Every closed door was moving him toward the exact future God had planned. And maybe that's what God is doing in your life right now. Because one of the hardest lessons of faith is learning that God's activity is not always visible. We often assume that if we can't see Him working, He must not be working. But that's not true. A seed grows underground long before anyone sees a tree. The roots develop before the fruit appears. Life is forming beneath the surface. And perhaps your miracle is developing beneath the surface too. Perhaps God is doing something invisible right now. Something you cannot yet understand. Something you cannot yet see. Something that will make sense later. But faith requires trusting Him before the evidence appears. And that's difficult. Especially when life hurts. Especially when prayers seem unanswered. Especially when you're tired. Maybe you're watching this today because you're facing a battle nobody knows about. You smile around other people. You tell everyone you're fine. But deep inside, you're struggling. You're carrying fears you don't talk about. You're carrying disappointments you don't share. You're carrying questions you don't know how to answer. And perhaps you're wondering if anyone truly understands. The truth is, God understands. He sees every tear. He hears every prayer. He knows every fear. Even the fears you've never spoken out loud. Nothing about your situation surprises Him. Nothing about your struggle confuses Him. Nothing about your future is uncertain to Him. God sees the entire picture while we only see one small part. That's why trust is so important. Because faith is not believing after you see. Faith is believing before you see. David understood this. Before David became king, he spent years running for his life. God had already chosen him. God had already promised him a future. Yet his reality looked completely different. Instead of sitting on a throne, David was hiding in caves. Instead of living in victory, he was running from danger. Instead of seeing God's promise fulfilled, he was waiting. And waiting. And waiting. But during those years, God was preparing David. Building his character. Strengthening his faith. Teaching him dependence. And perhaps God is doing the same thing with you. Maybe this season isn't punishment. Maybe this season is preparation. Maybe God is developing something inside you that could never be developed any other way. Because sometimes the blessing you're asking for requires a stronger version of you. A wiser version of you. A more faithful version of you. And God loves you too much to skip the preparation process. I know that's not always easy to hear. We want immediate answers. We want instant breakthroughs. We want every prayer answered today. But God's timing is different from ours. And His perspective is greater than ours. There are things God sees that we cannot see. Doors He is protecting us from. People He is removing from our path. Opportunities He is preparing in advance. Blessings that are not ready yet. And because He sees the future, He knows exactly when the answer should arrive. Not a moment too soon. Not a moment too late. Exactly when it should. Think about Job. Job lost almost everything. His comfort, his security, his peace. And there were moments when nothing made sense. Moments when he could not understand what God was doing. Moments when all he could do was trust. Yet in the end, Job discovered something powerful. God had never abandoned him. Not for a single moment. Even in suffering. Even in confusion. Even in silence. God was still there. And God is still here today. Right where you are. Right in the middle of your struggle. Right in the middle of your waiting season. Right in the middle of your uncertainty. God has not walked away from you. God has not forgotten you. God has not stopped caring about you. The enemy wants you to believe that your story is over. The enemy wants you to believe that nothing will ever change. The enemy wants you to quit one day before your breakthrough arrives. But don't believe that lie. Because your story is still being written. This chapter is not the final chapter. This struggle is not the final chapter. This disappointment is not the final chapter. God is still writing. God is still moving. God is still working. Even now. Even today. Even in this moment. There are blessings being prepared that you cannot yet see. There are answers already moving toward you. There are doors that will open. There are opportunities that will appear. There are miracles that will make sense of the waiting. One day you will look back and realize that what felt like delay was actually protection. What felt like silence was actually preparation. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like the end was actually a new beginning. That's why you must not give up. Not today. Not this week. Not this month. Keep praying. Keep believing. Keep trusting. Keep moving forward one step at a time. Even when it's difficult. Even when it's painful. Even when you don't understand. Because faith grows strongest when circumstances give you every reason to quit. And if you're watching this right now, maybe that's exactly why this message found you. Maybe God wanted to remind you that He sees you. Maybe He wanted to remind you that He hears you. Maybe He wanted to remind you that He is closer than you think. Closer than your fears. Closer than your doubts. Closer than your worries. Closer than your pain. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. And you are not alone. The same God who was with Joseph in prison. The same God who was with David in the wilderness. The same God who was with Job in suffering. Is with you right now. And if He carried them through their darkest moments, He can carry you through yours. So before this video ends, I want you to make a decision. Choose faith over fear. Choose trust over doubt. Choose hope over discouragement. And remember this truth. God's silence does not mean God's absence. He is working. Even now. If this message encouraged you, write in the comments, "I will not give up." Your comment may become the encouragement someone else desperately needs today. And if you want more faith-filled messages like this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because every day, someone needs hope. And together, we can remind the world that no matter how dark the night becomes, God is still working. Folded hands, red heart.